Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live at Jonny Lipsham Studios. I'm Jonny. Welcome to the show. Hope everyone's doing well. It is June 2nd. Good grief, the year is going fast. We're halfway through the year, folks, already. It's crazy. Now, some of you may have noticed the absence of a video upload this week, and that is because I have been absolutely floored by a really nasty sinus infection that has just totally wiped me out, and I've been in bed for practically the whole week, which has not been very entertaining for anybody. Fortunately, my wife has been off for the week. It's been her week holiday today. Today? Her week's holiday today? No, her week's holiday for the whole week. So, yeah, so that's the situation. So it's been a tough week for everybody. Am I fitting well yet? No, not by any means. But I managed to get out of bed in time to do tonight's show because I did not want to not do a show. So there are 14 people here already, and we're only a couple of minutes into the show, about 4 or 5 minutes in. And James was the first one in the door saying hello all. And David is telling me that YouTube has been unstable in the States, at least where I am, he says. He says it was down for a while this afternoon. Right now I'm having trouble getting things to play in HD. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, mate. I have heard that YouTube has been having some server issues in certain parts of the United States. But not everywhere is affected, and Europe certainly is not affected as far as I know. I've been watching YouTube videos all day whilst I've been in my bed, so I've not had any issues. So it must be certain parts of the States that have a wee problem with high definition. Greg Thomas is here. He says, nice track. Thank you very much. That was my single that I put out in 2016 called Softly Spoken, which was written for a brass ensemble with rhythm section. So what you have there is you have trumpets, you have trombones, you have French horns, you have a tuba, and what else do we have there? And a couple of tenor horns as well. So it's a proper brass band with a rhythm section as well, and a flugelhorn solo played, not by me. I do play flugelhorn, but no, that's not me. That's my friend Luke Richards, who just happens to be an outstanding flugelhorn player. Because he can go really, really high, like he does at the end of his solo, which is amazing. I can't even go half that high. And he has a beautiful tone as well. But one of the things he can do is he can do something called, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, he does something called circular breathing, where as he's putting breath into the instrument, he's also drawing breath in at the same time. It's a really clever technique. Australian didgeridoo players just do it. They just learn when they're kids how to do it with a drinking straw and a bowl of water, and they learn how to do it. So they can go on and play didgeridoo. And it's exactly the same technique, but my friend Luke does it with trumpet and with flugelhorn, and it just means that he can just play like a complete never-ending flow of notes when he's improvising. He didn't do it in this particular tune, but he can do, and he does do it when it's required. Let's see. I think it's going to be a small gathering tonight. I get the feeling it's going to be a small gathering. My neighbour's just walked in. He's on his Peace Valley Audio channel. He says, sup, dude. Sup, dude, to you too, mate. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I think it's going to be a smaller gathering tonight. If you are a member of mixingmadeeasy.net, you are on a coaching call, I believe. Or is that happening tomorrow? I'm not really sure. I can't remember. But yeah, something like there are other things on the internet going on YouTube at the moment. So that's cool. If you are watching both, you are phenomenal. But that, yeah, it's cool. I totally get that. So let's see, who do we have? We have James Gio, who I spoke of, David, we have Kyle, we have Dwayne552, who says howdy all. Bobby Booth, no show is complete without Bobby. Let's see, RJ Hagler is here. He says, just remember, it's not if it's not Scottish, it's crap. Yes, absolutely. If it's not made in Scotland, forget it. The best stuff is made in Scotland. Yeah, it's true. No. We don't really do things like technology. Peace Valley Audio says, Dave just sent an email that the live stream isn't working for him. Well, I'm really sorry about that. I hope that issues resolve itself and he can watch the replay. But yeah, we don't really make technology. Although we have done in the past, we have innovated things like the telephone, like television. We invented those kind of things. But yeah. David actually has the first question, and it's a shame that he's had to duck out because of quality issues. That's a shame. But I hope that he's able to see this on the replay. So Dave, if you're watching on the replay, he says, is there a standard horn section for a rock or blues band? Well, there kind of is. Oh, you're talking about Dave Vignola, and he says it's rescheduled. Okay, that's fine. Yes, there are problems with YouTube in various parts of the United States. It's not happening in Europe as far as I know, but certainly certain parts of the United States are experiencing issues. It's a known issue. There is a server problem. That is meaning that not everybody is able to stream in HD or watch videos in HD, which is a bit of a shame. So anyway, David SJ, I don't know if you're still here, but if you are, is there a standard horn section for a rock and blues band? Yes, there is. Although it's not necessarily standard, but this is kind of the most common horn section that you would see for a rock band or for, something like the band Chicago or Blood, Sweat and Tears, Earth, Wind and Fire, Tower of Power, those kind of bands that have, horn sections. It tends to be 2 trumpets, a trombone, alto sax, tenor sax, baritone sax. The baritone sax tends to be kind of in more of a soul funk kind of setup, like Tower of Power. They have a baritone sax. But rock bands, they don't tend. You would probably do without the baritone sax and have the alto, the tenor, and then the brass would be 2 trumpets or 1 trumpet and trombone. Steely Dan tend to have, or at least in recent years, their horn section is trumpet, trombone, and 2 tenor saxes, and occasionally a baritone sax as well. Roger Rosenberg has been a baritone sax player with Steely Dan for the last couple of tours, so they've gone out with a baritone sax in their horn section the last couple of tours, but normally you wouldn't see a baritone sax in a Steely Dan show. But there it is. So yeah, there are kind of variations of that kind of thing. And maybe one of the sax players will double up on flute where necessary for whatever song. And one of the tenor sax players maybe will have an alto there as well. So, you've got a different tone for whatever song you happen to be doing. So tonight's show, what is the format for tonight's show? Well, there isn't really a format for tonight's show because I've been sick. So I haven't really had time to think about it because pretty much I've been in bed all day and I got up maybe about an hour and a half ago and had something to eat and sat in front of the telly until it was time to come through here, to be honest. So I haven't really had a chance to really think about what we can talk about, what we can demonstrate. So the floor is yours for tonight's show, pretty much. David SJ says, cool, thanks. I need to do a horn arrangement for a song I'm working on. Yeah, horn arranging is something I do a lot of. And depends on the music that you're doing and the style of the song, but a lot of what you write will be unison, which means everybody's playing the same notes, or in octaves. So unison or octaves, everybody's playing the same kind of riffs, the same kind of motifs, the same at the same pitch or octaves apart. That's kind of most common horn writing, unless like you're doing you have a bridge section or something where you need some chords in the horns, some harmonies. In which case you can alternate between wide open voicing and close voicing. So what does that mean in practice? Well, that would kind of mean, you could have, if you've got a really good high note trumpet player, that makes a big difference, because they can go up here somewhere and above, so you can have your trumpet up here, and then your alto sax here, and then trombone down here. Although that's pretty high for a trombone. And then I don't know. So you can have like everything really quite wide open, so you can allow that trumpet to go up, or you can have everything nice and close voiced. So yeah, try some of those ideas out. Mike says, can we discuss common chord progressions and how to use them? Certainly. Like 1, 6, 5 and that kind of stuff. Okay, well 1, 4, and 5. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, 1, 4, and 5 is probably the most common chord changes in the world of popular song. So what is 1, 4, and 5? Well, C. And then the next one up would be F, because that's 4 notes up from C. And then 5 would just be the next door. Oopsie. Everyone should know that song. And I'm not going to play any more of that because I'll get a copyright strike. But yeah, 1, 4, 5, the most popular set of chord changes, comes up in songs like that aforementioned one that I just played, or Blues is a 1, 4, 5 song, pretty much. 12-bar blues just uses 1, 4, and 5. Jazz standards, you would come across 1, 6, 2, 5. So chord 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. So yeah, that's kind of a 1625 is kind of a common one, or 3625, which would be. So you're kind of going E, A, D, G. And then you can go. So yeah, 3625 1, 1625 1. Those are kind of common sets of changes in jazz music. Blues tends to be a 1, 4, 5 kind of thing. Electronic music, well, depends on the electronic music. But some electronic dance music would, they approach harmony from a completely different point of view. So the chords aren't about how they progress one to the other. So they're not, in electronic music, quite often the chords don't actually have a relationship with one another like they would in popular song. So, in a blues, 1, 4, and 5 have intrinsic relationship together, and in jazz 1, 6, 2, 5, they all have an intrinsic relationship together. So in electronic music, that's kind of blown away. So chords much more are about the sonic characteristics of the chord, and the mood that that particular chord invokes. And then when you go to the next chord, there might not be a particular relationship between one chord and the next, but they might have a contrast in tone, a contrast in color, or something like that. And that's what creates kind of like the relationship. It's not really a tonal relationship, it's a sonic relationship that governs one chord moving to the next. So they won't relate to each other. You might get like, I don't know, kind of, I'm not really into that kind of music, but, if I was doing something ambient, for example, I might do, So it's much more about the atmosphere that each chord creates rather than the relationship between each chord there. So what I was doing there was kind of the chords were related. They were related by an interval of a major third. And you find that some music has that in atmospheric music. They do have a relationship, but they might not. I just kind of picked some chords that do kind of slightly relate. And each one of those was kind of a variation on a major 7 chord. And I chucked in a couple of diminished chords as well, but I'm going more for color rather than for exact musical tonal relationship. And that's kind of the difference there. Let's see. David says, then there's the ubiquitous and country music 1, 1, 6, 4, 5 progression that's used everywhere. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. And those kind of songs, those kind of chord changes have been around since maybe the 1920s, maybe even before then, maybe kind of derived from songs from the early music hall tradition of like maybe the 1910s, the maybe 100 years ago from today, kind of like, the pre-First World War period into the First World War period. And then, of course, into vaudeville in the late teens, the immediate post-First World War period and into the early 20s, where vaudeville ruled supreme over songwriting. That was kind of the place where, and that's kind of where Tin Pan Alley, which you may or may not have heard of, that's kind of where that grew up. Tin Pan Alley became this place where, people were employed as songwriters, and they would sit at a piano and they'd churn out 300-400 songs a week, and those songs would get printed and sold as songbooks that you could have in your home and you could play on the piano. And we're talking kind of like before gramophones before gramophones were affordable enough that you could have one in your house. So at that point, people had a piano or a little pianola in their house. And so sheet music was king. Sheet music was the equivalent of what we have as iTunes, Nowadays, we just, if we want something, we go and get it off of iTunes. Or we go to Spotify or something like that. But back 100 years ago, sheet music was where it was, and that's where people like Irving Berlin became famous, George and Ira Gershwin, all these popular songwriters of that period. And a lot of them, because they were having to churn out so many songs per week really, really quickly, they picked popular, easily relatable themes, and in order to get the song out there quickly, you would rely upon props like 1625 or 1645 chord changes, because they work. And quite often you'd have 1625 in the verses, and then what they the middle section would be an extended 3625-1. So you'd have that'd be your verse, and then you go. And that's kind of how those songs were put together. So there you go, a little bit of Tin Pan Alley there, and of course, as pointed out in the chat here, Tin Pan Alley became the Brill Building of the 1950s and 60s. Yep, that's correct. Jonny Guyber's in the building, and Lowenz has also joined us as well. So we've got 19 people in the building. Building? Did I really just refer to our stream as the building? Dear God. His Royal Faciousness is here. He says, and I know I nailed it, except I wasn't aware of horn transposition. You should have seen the looks they gave me. They totally schooled me. Yeah, transposing. So important if you're going to write horn charts. You need to know transposing. Otherwise, yeah, you'll get schooled pretty quickly by snarky, sarcastic horn players. They'll have you for dinner if you haven't written out the charts correctly. So how would transposition work for those that don't know? Okay, trumpets. You write a trumpet part a tone above the note you want. So, for example, if I want my trumpet player to play this note here, this is an A. So what I would do is on his chart I would write a B, and then so he would play his B, and the sound that comes out of his horn is an A, that concert pitch. So he would read a B, he would put his fingers down on the valves to make a B, but out of the horn comes an A. Okay? So if I want an alto sax to play the same note, I need to write a major sixth above that note. So I would have to write, I'd have to write an F sharp. So I'd write an F sharp for my alto sax player. Alto sax player fingers the F sharp, and out of his horn comes the same note as the trumpet player. Tenor sax player, I would write a B for him as well as the trumpet, except his note is going to be a major ninth above this pitch here. So if I want him to play this note here, I'm going to have to write that B there. So he will finger that. Now that's really, really high for a tenor sax. So he's in altissimo register. So he would be fingering that particular note, and out of the horn would come that note. Baritone sax is it's a 13th, the interval this time. You write a 13th above. Now a baritone sax is never going to hit that note. So the baritone sax, you'd want to be playing this note down here, because he would never ever get that note unless he like really squeezes tight and screams the note. So your baritone sax player is going to be down here somewhere. So when he's playing down here, I'm writing a note up there. So that's a 13th above that note. How do I know it's a 13th? Octave, and then a 6th above that. So I write this F sharp Baritone sax player fingers that F sharp, and out comes that A. And that's, in a nutshell, how transposing works. It's a bit of a mind trip. I was going to say another word, but it's a bit of a mind trip to get your head around how it works, transposing for different instruments. Mike is asking, can I demonstrate transposing using the chord track? Now, transposing using the chord track is a little bit tricky because the chord track is global. It affects all the tracks that are set to follow it. So if you can't exactly use the chord track to transpose for these different instruments I'm talking about, you'd have to use, you'd have to probably use something like PreSonus Notion to do this. You'd write the chart out in concert pitch, and then you would set the correct transposition, and Notion transposes it all for you, and then you print it out and you give it to your sax player. Mike says, I'll be back. Gotta get my tablet. Okay, no problem. So the chord track, transposing is dead easy with the chord track because you can just change the chord using the chord selector. I can show that if you just give me a second. I need to go back to the start page, and I need to find this song here. And you're probably going, get the screen, get the screen. Yes, I know. Don't worry, I'm going to do it. It's fine. Have no fear. I'm going to transition. I just have to make sure I'm pressing the right buttons here. All right, so this is the demo that I did for chord track when chord track first came out. And I'm going to close the mixer because we don't need the mixer right now. I'm going to mute the top part, and we're just going to use this presence part here. All right, so that's what we have at the moment, and though this presence part is following these chord changes here. So if I decide, not sure I want this to be in B flat, I want this to be in A flat, well that's fine because I can select all like that, and I can, do I do this in the inspector? I have to try and remember. Been a while since I've done this, folks. Select the first chord. Oh, is this how I did it? I can't remember. Trying to remember what I did. Trying to remember what oh, hang on, I did it down here. Did I do it down here? No, that's not what I want. I want to transpose this to a different key. Let's go and try. Now that just changes every chord to A flat. That's not what I wanted. There we go. Let's just undo that. Key signature. Is how I did it? No, I can't remember how I did it. I hate it when this happens. So let's say, yeah, I really wanted to be able to do this with all the tracks, and I can't remember how I did it. I really can't remember how I did it. Yeah, I can't remember how I did it, but there is a dead easy way to do it. And I just can't remember what I did to do it. Was this it? Transpose chords. There we go. There we go. So if I go okay, so no, let's go down to. So I want this to be in A flat. There we go. And now, as you can see, everything is magically transposed. So now we have A flat, D flat, E flat 7, A flat 7, D flat minor, A flat. Let's play it. And just to prove that this is correct, I shall play along with the chord track. All right, so that just proves that that actually works. I'd just forgotten how to do it, and that's all. Okay, so let's put this all. Let's all put this back. So what you do is you right-click, you select all the chords in your section, and then you right-click and you choose Transpose Chords. And I'm going to put it back to where it was. And now we're back in B flat. Okay, so we're now back in the key of B flat. Now let's say we want to go to the key of C. Easy enough, right click, transpose. This time we go up 2. And now we're in the key of C. Let's play along. All right, so that is how you do that. That's how transposing using the chord track works, fundamentally. That's if you want to change all of the chords in a section. Now, although I'm just using this presence track, this does work with audio. This Fender Rhodes part will follow suit as well. Let's put it back, and I'll show you what I mean. So let's transpose it back down to, back to B flat, where we belong. Let's have both channels play. All right, let's go down to A flat, which is what we did before. Right click, transpose, down to, okay. And now let's play. And as you can see, it works perfectly. Same with going the other way. So we can right click, we can transpose, we can go back 2 and then up 2 more, and this will take us to the key of C. And that is how we do that. So I hope that was helpful. But when you go from E major to F sharp minor, that doesn't work. But that's because E major and F sharp minor are 2 different chord types. But you can change a single chord from E to F sharp minor, or whatever it might be. I can go back to that song, and I can change any of those chords to any other chord. So if I go back and let's put this back at its original key. Transpose, go back down, and let's say I want to make this one here. Oy, that was loud. It's because I've got the chord audition on. Let's see what we can do here. Let's say we want to make this last chord B flat minor instead. So let's do a double click and let's go and change it to B minor. There we go. And so let's play the track. And now you see beautifully that is now a B flat minor chord. Okay? So you can change a major chord to a minor chord. You can change a minor chord to a major chord. You can change a minor or a major chord to a diminished chord. You can add a sharp 11. You can add a flat 13. You can add a flat 9. You can do all of that stuff. But changing key, if you are in the key of E major, which is what you're talking about, want to get to the key of F sharp minor from there instead, right? So the standard way would be to go G sharp, C sharp, F sharp minor. And now I'm back in E, just like that. And just like that, you know. That would be how you would do that, but using the chord track, you would have to work out which chords need to be minor, which chords need to be major. You'd have to do that by ear, or having a little bit of music theory understanding would help you immeasurably at that point. You know, if you're wanting to change key, it can be done using the chord track, but you can't literally just copy paste a bunch of chords and then go transpose and hope that that works. Because again, you'd have to work out which chords need to be minor, which chords need to be major. Well, you know, a chord 1 in F sharp minor is going to be F sharp minor. So you'd have to work that out, that chord 4 is also going to be minor. But it can, you know, it can be major as well. A lot of pop songs have been written like that. You know, when I'm playing this, you're probably thinking of a certain George Harrison song. And that's kind of how he wrote that song. It's a 2-5-1 song, basically. But yeah, that's how that would work. Not entirely 100% straightforward like that. Mike says, so you can't change the key of the song using the chord track. You can. I've just shown you that you can, but you need to understand which chords need to be major and which chords need to be minor in order to make that work. It's not like an auto-transpose feature. The chord track is not an auto-transpose feature. It's not like you just hit one button and it automatically makes major chords, minor chords, major chords, according to a cycle of fifths, or, you know, that kind of thing. You need to feed it the correct kind of information. But you can do it. You can draw in a block of chords in the chord track and say F sharp minor, B7, F sharp minor, B7, whatever. You can do that. And you can have, you know, whatever chords you've already put in, you can have it try and follow that. But the thing you're going to have to bear in mind is the fact that what the chord track does is it adjusts parameters in the audio and parameters in the MIDI, whichever things you've got going on, it adjusts those kind of things in the background. So if you've got audio tracks, if you transpose too far, you'll get artifacting because it's stretching and compressing elements of the audio in an extremely clever and sophisticated way to make major chords minor and that kind of thing. So you have to bear that in mind, you know, like you saw with my little transposing thing there, where I was transposing this little set of changes in B flat. I was making them go down to A flat, making it go up to C major. I could have kept going and I could have, you know, done some pretty wild things. I could have changed, you know, in fact, screw it, let's do it. Let's do some wild transposing to demonstrate what I mean here. All right, so we have B flat, E flat, F, B flat 7, E flat minor, B flat minor. Okay, let's turn this. I can turn the audition chord thing off, I think, for now. So let's change this because it's just gonna get me every time. So let's change that back to a major. Okay, close that. All right, let's say we go and change this to an E chord. Okay, and then let's say we change this one to let's see, let's go B7 there, and let's change this B flat 7 to A flat minor. And let's change this one to C minor. Let's change this one to E flat, and then we'll keep the last one as B flat. Now, if I just solo up the MIDI, you'll see how easy this sounds. Because all it's doing is moving MIDI notes around. That's easy. That's so simple, you know, it can do that very easily. Not quite so easy when it comes to diddling around with audio. As you can hear. Can you hear all the sliding effects that are going on there? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Chord track is wonderful. It's brilliant. It's such a great idea. Is it perfect yet? No. It's got some distance to go, but what it does do is incredibly powerful. You know, there's no doubt about that. So it's got some way to go, but it gives you an idea. Could I use this as my actual piano track, my actual Fender Rhodes track in a song and actually release it? No, because it's got those slidey things going on there and some of the artifacting going on there. I couldn't do it. I would have to replay it. But if I'm using this as scratch tracks to experiment with before I settle upon, hey, this is the set of chord changes I want, perfect. Now I get my real piano player to come in and cut the track using those chord changes. That will work. If you're using the chord track for that purpose, that will work. If you're using it to experiment with different chord changes to see what works, or you know, different constructs to see what works before you settle upon your final thing, and you're using scratch tracks to do that, that's fine. And then you just replace with an actual proper performed piano part following your finalized set of chord changes. That works well. But yeah, it's not an auto-transpose device. You can't just like hit a button and go, right, I want my song to now go to F sharp minor. No, it doesn't quite work like that. But you can take a set of chord changes and shift them around like that until you've got something that works in F sharp minor. If you've got a set of changes that are in E, and then you copy this section and work on it in F sharp minor, you can do that. Just be aware that you're going to get all of those artifacting things that I just demonstrated for you, and it's not going to be ideal. I wouldn't use that as a final track. I would use that as a scratch track, which I ultimately will replace once I'm happy with, hey, this actually works for my song. You know, then, you know, you replace that with a real track. So I hope that helps give you some idea of what you can do. So there you go. David says F sharp minor is the relative to A major. That is correct. He's so fine. Harrison wrote that. No, not sure about that. David says, so you could set the key to A major and use F sharp minor as your root. You could. You could. Because it's the relative minor. Yeah, you could do that. Don't see why not. So yeah, so that's kind of how that works. So Mike, I hope you're still watching, and I hope you understand a little bit more of how the chord track works. And you know, how you can actually make it do what you want it to do. But you kind of need to have a little bit of kind of heads up on what's going to work and what's not going to work. And as I say, you can experiment like I did there, where I just kind of changed some of the chords. Now, I changed them quite erratically. You're not going to do that. But you can certainly experiment and go, hey, this works or this doesn't work, and then change it. And that's the beauty of the chord track, is you can try something out. And certainly with the new audition feature, you can see what a chord sounds like. And you can click on each of your chord blocks to say, hey, is this going to work? Is this going to progress well? That's something incredibly valuable and powerful, and I'm really glad that the guys in Hamburg decided that this was a great idea and that they should make that the next step for chord track. Absolutely. You know, it isn't the finished article yet. I think, you know, several versions down the line of Studio One, I think we'll end up with a chord track that is infinitely better than anything else on the DAW market. I have no doubt about that. No doubt whatsoever. Mike says I'll need to watch again once the storm is over. That's cool, no problem. So yeah, hope, you know, on second viewing that all makes sense for you. PM Barrett says, as at Dave, yes. Okay, cool. Coolio. We have 27 people in the room, and we are coming at about 10 minutes or so to go. Anybody got any other questions? Kyle is here. He says on YouTube, Axis of Awesome, 4-chord songs. Yeah. I wrote a song actually for a kids album where I kind of took the mickey out of 4-chord songs. I did that. Oh gosh, that was a long time ago. That was nearly 10 years ago that I did that now. And the kids didn't get the jokes, but everybody else in the room got the joke. Greg Thomas is here. Hello, Greg. Good to see you. He says, music seems to move in fourths, so why the circle of fifths? That's a huge subject, and there are books that are like that thick. 4 or 5 volumes, actually, of books that thick that go into that question. Actually, the reason why it's called a circle of fifths is because it's all to do with the relationship between tonic and dominant. What is the tonic? Other than it's something you have with gin. The tonic is what you would call home of a key. So if your song is in the key of C, then C is the tonic. And G, or G7, is the dominant. So that's kind of the relationship in Western music. Tension, release, tension, release, tension, release. So, you know, everything kind of revolves around that. So when we have a 2-5-1, 1 is the tonic, 2 is minor, 5 is dominant. So that's kind of that's why it's called the cycle of fifths, because in the key of C, we go in order of sharps. We go from the key of C, the next one along is G, then it's D, then A, then E, then B, then F sharp, then C sharp, and so on and so forth. So it's the direction of travel round the keys that you go. So if you go sharps, 1 sharp, or no sharps, no flats, is C major. The next one would be G major, which has 1 sharp, 2 sharps is D, 3 sharps is A, 4 sharps is E, 5 sharps is B, 6 sharps is F sharp, 7 sharps is C sharp. Okay? And then, so that goes in fifths. C, G, and so on, okay? If you're going in flats, which would be going anti-clockwise round the circle, you get it in fourths. So flats are in fourths. So no sharps, no flats is C, 1 flat is F, 2 flats is B flat, 3 flats is E flat, 4 flats is A flat, 5 flats is D flat, 6 flats is G flat, 7 flats is C flat. And that's how that works. So, yes, it is called a cycle of fifths because of the direction of travel being clockwise rather than counterclockwise. Let's see. Lewis Turse is here. I think it's Lewis. Is it Lewis or Louis? I'm not really sure. He says, "Hi, I'm setting up a Q mix. What does the mute follows track mean? I'm not home right now, but I thought I saw a box you can check or uncheck in advanced settings." I don't know, actually, because I don't use Q mixes, to be honest. Because I'm mostly just me in this room, so I don't need a Q mix. But if I had other artists in here who needed a separate headphone mix, I would use Q mixes. And so, yes, I don't really use that feature. Jonny Gibe would be the guy to chime in on that one, if he is still here. Jerome says, "That's what I'm waiting for, a better chord tool." The chord track is very powerful. It is an amazing tool already. It helps you write your song. It helps you work out your chord changes for your song. Does that mean you can automatically generate piano tracks? No. And I don't think that's the intention of it either. I think the intention is that it helps you work out what something sounds like or should sound like. But I don't think the intention is to be able to spontaneously generate something, to be honest. Let's see. Problems mixing piano, panning, EQ. Mixing, well, it depends how the piano is recorded. Is the piano recorded in stereo with spaced pair miking or XY configuration miking or whatever? That's the first question I'd have to ask, is how is it mic'd? As for panning, if it is mic'd in stereo with two microphones, then you want to pan one left and one right. And then for EQ, piano has a very large frequency response at all ends of the spectrum. You need to work out how that is going to fit best with any bass instruments or any guitars. So it depends on what else is going on in the mix, to be honest. I don't mix in isolation. I don't mix in solo. I don't hit the solo button and spend ages tweaking and shaping the piano sound until the piano sounds wonderful, because it might not sound great when you then put it in the context of the whole mix. It might totally suffocate your bass. It might totally overwhelm your acoustic guitars. But on its own, it sounds beautiful. So you need to actually think about how is it going to slot in with everything else that is there. Presence piano. Well, because it's presence, and all the instruments inside presence are already to some degree been processed already, because they are recordings, they are samples of real instruments. They are already samples of real instruments. So you'd really only be worried about fitting it into the context of the mix, not necessarily shaping the tone of that piano sound, because that aspect has already been done. So you'd be concerned about how does the presence piano track fit in with the guitars, the vocals, the bass, the drums, all of that. So you might need to do some high-pass filtering. You might need to do some mid-range cuts. You might do some mid-range boosts. It depends on your song. Ken Moss with the $2 donation. Thank you very much. I appreciate that considerably, my friend. Thank you. Let's see. Ken is here. Good to see you, Ken. He says some songs have a spontaneous key change with no apparent passing chords. For example, McCartney from C right to E for the middle section of Little Lamb Dragonfly, and it works. Yes. You don't have to do something like a 2-5-1 to get you into a new key. You can do, if you're in the key of C. And you want to get to the key of E, you can do. Which is basically F sharp minor B7 to E. You can do that. or you can just leap to it. And all I've done there is use a B with a D sharp in the bass as my pivot. But even then, you don't necessarily need a pivot. You can just go. You can use a pivot chord. You don't have to use a pivot chord. You can use a 2-5-1 to get you there. There's different ways to skin that particular animal. So try and see what works. It really does depend upon what you want to achieve. If you want to achieve something sudden and abrupt, then yes, jumping straight to it can work. Or just using a single pivot chord can work. Or setting your listener up a little bit more and maybe even doing something more elaborate. It doesn't have to be a 2-5-1. It could be a 3-6-2-5-1. You could try that. That would work. And it would, you'd end up with a better, it depends. Are you wanting to be really obvious about it, or are you wanting to deceive your listener? And thinking all that's happened really is the mood has changed, or it's either kind of gone a little bit darker or a little bit brighter. It kind of depends on what you want to do for your song, to be honest. Ken Moss says free credits. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate that. James says he has to run. He says, thank you, Johnny. Feel better. Thank you very much. I'm on the mend. It's been a week. And I am fed up to the back teeth a bit. But, it is what it is. We still have 19 people here, which is awesome. Love it when we have that many people here. Anyone got any other questions? We are 1 minute over time, but that's okay. I don't mind. I shall drink a little bit more tea. But yeah, those harmony questions were great. Harmony and transposition those questions were really, really good. So anyone else got any other fantastic questions just like that? That'd be cool. I will run for a little bit longer. But if there are no more questions coming, we will end it. So let's give it a couple of minutes. But I have to say, I do like the idea of jumping from one key to another. Yeah. I've gone full circle. I went off to a few different keys just by using pivot chords. And I got myself back to C major. Oh, got minor this time. Israel Facius says, I got my organic green and ginger tea going on there. That's not what I call tea. Some people call that tea. I don't. Tea, for me, I'm a bit of a tea purist. Tea is proper. Now, I can hear what you're going to say. You're going to say, I'm going to say tea is proper English tea. No, because tea is not English. tea is Indian. Ultimately, that's where it comes from. And that's kind of the tea that I like, is proper Indian tea. Like, I like Assam tea. If you don't know what that is, go Google it. There's a wonderful tea company called Twinings, and they make a fantastic box of Assam blended teas, and it is glorious. And that's what I have in my mug right now. All right, so it looks like we have no more questions. Like Earl Grey. Earl Grey. Yeah, Earl Grey is gross. But yes, Earl Grey is probably one of the more famous Indian teas. I don't like it because it just smells... It smells like you're drinking flowers, frankly. Like, you know, like you've gone to your garden, you've picked up some flowers, and you dropped it in some hot water. And, you know, to me, that's what it smells and tastes like. That's why I call it Earl Grey. But yes, there are some green teas and ginger teas and that kind of thing that people will drink for various health reasons, because it gives them extra vitamins and minerals and stuff that you wouldn't otherwise already get. Greg is talking about Dilmah tea. Yeah, Dilmah tea is another good Indian tea, which I don't really drink, but yeah, it's a good one. A lot of people like it. Feel better, Johnny, says David, get to bed. Yeah, I'm just about to do that because I have a busy day ahead of me. I have a busy week ahead of me because I didn't do any work this week. So I've got, I need to basically catch up. And some deadlines that were kind of nice and kind of over here, not too far away, are now suddenly getting about here. So I should attend to those this week, and there will be more videos coming out. I've got a whole string of new videos coming out over the next few months. And next week, next Sunday, speaking of next Sunday, if you have a particular broad subject that you would like the entire show to focus on, then please do send me an email to johnny@johnnylipshamstudios.co.uk, and I will see about getting that in. It would be really great if we have a whole string of shows where the subjects are subjects that are decided by you, rather than by me going, what can we do? What can we do? What can we look at? What can we demonstrate? But if you've got great ideas, and if you've got questions, big, broad questions that you would like answered, that, you know, we can kind of dedicate an entire show to, then please drop me that email. That would be very cool. And then we can have a whole string of shows dedicated to your questions and dedicated to your ideas. Greg says, thanks, Johnny. I'm still going with the circle of fourths idea. Yeah, fourths is flats. Fifths is sharps. That's why it's called the cycle of fifths. So if you like flat keys, you'll be going counterclockwise. You'll be going... you'd be going C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and finally C flat. And then you start going the other way, and you go through the sharps, and you work your way back to C. That's how it kind of works. Dwayne says, thanks, Johnny, for a wonderful show. You're welcome, and I'm glad you found it useful. Please do hit that like button, folks. I would appreciate it. We had about 20... How many did we peak at? 27 people. It'd be nice if we have at least 20 or so likes. That'd be great. And if you've got any further questions from this show, stick them in the comments below. Send me an email. Whatever you need. As I say, I've got a whole string of videos coming out. So Wednesday will be Songwriting Simplified over on Johnny's channel, the HST live streams channel, 6 p.m. Central, that will be. So get yourselves over there, and we will deal with your songwriting questions. That'll be awesome, and then we'll be back here next Sunday. So, folks, thank you so much for coming. It's been a really great show. There's been lots of really good questions, actually. So we can tackle some more of those next time. So thanks for coming. Thanks, Ken, for the $2. I appreciate that. It all helps. It all adds up. So I will see you next time, folks. Good night.